Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Whiteboard Wednesdays with Werner and still Rudolph and myself discussing the advantages of a sovereign, locally built boutique cloud, OCS, Oxide Cloud Services, which is data science's public cloud offering. And, you know, Rudolph, one of the things that I really have seen an uptick this year in terms of demand. I mean, we've been talking, I would say, I know myself, and I know yourself as well. For the last 3 years or so, we talked about GPU-enabled workloads, GPU-accelerated data centers, and then there was the, AI, generative AI kind of, bubble, and now it's agentic, right? So how do I sell this pen to you? Well, it's agentic. So there you go. You must have it. So AI, GPU enablement. Organizations are now starting to pay a lot more attention to this. The barriers of entry are not completely low yet. I mean, GPU infrastructure at scale is astronomically expensive, and all of those things. So what's a good way for organizations to kind of wet their feet with this and start tinkering?
I think the big challenge we have at the moment, especially in our industry, and I think we as an industry are our own worst enemies. It's around these buzzwords, where everybody's throwing around buzzwords like agentic AI or LLM or just AI in general. As we have to do AI, and I think it boils down to the question: what is the impact to the business? So, from a executive level, there's a lot of pressure to say, guys, we need to start looking at AI. You need to start delivering on AI services. And from an infrastructure point of view, it's like, well, number one, where do we start? Number two, kind of what do we need to do with AI? Because there's different types of AI. For example, I've recently had a conversation with a company, and they're very interested in this whole thing around digital twins. Now, people think digital twin in a physical aspect, for example, a building or
facilities,
or something like that. But it can be much more business orientated. Even business processes can be digital twin, and you can start running simulations, and you can start optimizing those business processes and operational processes through the digital twin, utilizing digital twin technology or digital twin
concepts.
100%. And I think there's a lot of interest in that area as well. Say, how do we take, I mean, it's very difficult to do all these scenario plannings and all these strategic planning sessions using real world information. If you can digitize that and you can pull that insight from your current systems, tie that to a digital twin, and now you can start running strategic simulations against that to say, what happens if, for example, the rand dollar now suddenly goes to 22? How will that impact our core business services from our suppliers to our sales engine?
Yes.
And that type of stuff is getting a lot of traction. The main problem organizations have around AI is that barrier of entry. Doing AI is deemed as expensive because you need quite hefty servers. You need a GPU attached to that. There's been all sorts of noise in the market with the US limiting the number of GPUs that can be imported into specific countries. South Africa's under the orange list. We're not on the red list. Hopefully we don't get on the red list, but anyway.
But there's definitely
there's limitations,
scarcity, right?
There's scarcity, and what happens with scarcity is cost increase. So, and the scarcity is going to continue. It's not something that's in the short term. The medium term is going to get less. So that barrier of entry is quite high if you want to run that as an in-house project.
It's I've seen so many organizations, grappling, and there's such a divide between the data scientist, right? The guy who's got the math and is working in that software realm in terms of the modeling and creating, working with all those tool sets. And then there's this data engineering layer, which is a completely different discipline.
100%.
And then underneath all of this is the infrastructure, right? And not very, but I found that reasonably often in my encounters is that the data scientist, because he understands that world, but he doesn't actually understand server infrastructure, data, networks, how to, let's train a model, but how do I, the infrastructure required to push half a petabyte of data into that model is significant, right?
100%.
And there's no correlation. They don't necessarily understand that correlation. So there's a big gap in the market, I find, in those areas.
Exactly that. And then it goes one step further, that once they decide on the model and once they decide on the infrastructure, that still has to go through to the finance department to get sign off what is the return on investment going to be? What's the business going to get? If we need to spend 1, 2, 3 million rand for an entry level AI server, what is the business return going to be? And a lot of times the guys are saying, we're not exactly sure.
Exactly. It's so difficult.
We can quantify it once we do it. It's kind of that kind of situation.
Yeah. The potential ROI is this, or the potential impact is this, but it's extremely difficult to have empirical data when you
100%.
can't generate the empirical data.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's a chicken and egg situation of how do you quantify it before you test it and before you run that model.
Absolutely. So I think that's one of the things where we've seen a lot of organizations. The route they typically take is that they get to that point and they go, wow, we've got this model, and then or we've got this idea, and they think they're going to train a model, and then they start realizing the data, the power, and everything that requires to train a model. So then they go and they look for a pre-trained model, and they want to run that in the cloud as an embedding or whatever the case might be, and then they start seeing the cost of that cloud service. We've spoken about runaway stuff. GPU as a service is probably one of the most expensive
100%
cloud
services that if you want to run AI in one of the hyperscalers, you're going to get a hefty bill at the end of it.
It's a significant cost, and that's because the underlying infrastructure costs so much, to power it costs so much.
And again, a lot of these pre-trained models and a lot of these generalized models, they give you generalized returns.
Yeah.
And it's very, very difficult to take that and then retrain it as a specialized model.
Correct.
So from that point of view, there is a lot of spaces where the hyperscalers do make sense. But I think especially in the SMB space, we've put a lot of thought into it, and we've developed this GPU as a service that we're running within Oxide Cloud. And that is really, I want to almost say, an AI sandbox, where at a much reduced cost and at a cost-effective way, how can you start building those models? How can you start experimenting with AI workloads in your organizations in a safe, secure, cost-contained way?
Correct. And I think that's the thing is, we have these, visions of grandeur, and it's great to have aspirational goals, but you got to start somewhere. And really the mindset is around tinkering and exploring.
100%.
And for that, you don't need to have the full latest GB300 from
exactly.
You just need to start with something.
Yeah. So we've got kind of reasonably standardized platform.
Correct.
You get a dedicated GPU attached to your virtual machine.
Yeah.
And it's got the ray tracing cores. It's got the CUDA cores. So it's for machine learning. It's for digital twins. You can start playing around with all these different things, whether you're doing your own in-house LLM, or whether you're doing RAG, or whether you're doing these digital twins or these types of planning sessions. We've got a company there that's busy doing intelligence surveillance and video analytics. So it's kind of a generalist environment where you can start looking at the areas in your business where it would make sense.
Absolutely. And I think that's what we try and offer, right? Is prove your concept.
Yeah.
You're not, maybe some of the platforms, and where we are is, not necessarily going to scale to that top level, but that's where we as a boutique cloud offering can actually consult and step
100%.
in and say, right, understand your workload. Let's now build a platform for you, a GPU-enabled factory that you can then scale according to your needs and build that out. And that might be on-prem or a public hosted kind of thing. So we believe that that's the way to go about this, is to prove the case, test it, and then work with data sciences and OCS to effectively then build your strategy, your scale
Yeah, and
strategy.
operationalize it
Absolutely.
and scale it effectively. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Rudolf, thank you once again for joining us. Always great to have you with us on Whiteboard Wednesdays, and it's been a great couple of episodes. So look forward to the next few that we're going to do together.
Thanks
so much for your
me.
time.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.